Nathan had begrudgingly gone with his parents to his grandma's house on a Saturday morning. As most 17-year-olds might, he would have preferred to stay home and sleep in, but his mother insisted. She told him his grandmother was reaching an age when each time they saw her could be the last. While his parents kept his grandma company and took care of a few odds and ends around the house, Nathan's boredom got the better of him. He found himself wandering down the stairs into the basement. It wasn't fully finished, but before he died, his grandpa had built some large storage shelves. Nathan had seen them before, but it had always seemed rude to dig through someone else's things. Now, with everyone else occupied upstairs, he thought he could scratch his curious itch without upsetting anyone. The first two sets of shelves contained items that would shock no one to find in an old woman's basement. Punch bowls, oversized pots, pitchers, and a spare set of dinnerware took up most of the space. Uninteresting knickknacks and holiday decorations took up the rest. The third shelf was against the corner of the basement. A blanket was partially draped over it, like someone had removed it and couldn't quite get it back over the top. Well, this might be interesting, Nathan thought as he dragged the blanket off the shelf. The blanket fell away to reveal a set of shelves much less full than the first two. The middle shelf at Nathan's eye level had nothing but a small baseball mitt, a damaged child's helmet, and a pair of roller skates. The bottom shelf had two large boxes, which Nathan opened to find a variety of boys' clothes. Hoping to find something more interesting, Nathan reached up for the boxes on the top shelf. He opened the first and found a stack of musty books. They were all children's books, but for a variety of ages. He wondered if his grandma had the books for him when he was smaller and moved them to the basement after he outgrew them. To see if anything jogged his memory, he grabbed one of the books off the top. Lullabies and Soothing Songs was the book he opened. He read the title to himself as the spine crackled, and he looked at the table of contents. The book contained all the basic lullabies he remembered as a kid. Go to Sleep, Rockabye Baby, Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. But he didn't recognize the ornate page borders or watercolor artwork. As he turned the pages, one lullaby caught his attention. It was titled Lullaby for the Loved and Lost. Bring the lost with you to bed. Forget them not, for it is said, forgotten souls will leave their bones and come to live with you at home. If you wish tonight to sleep, the memory of loved ones keep. Let them not far from your mind, or as they wander, you they'll find. The corner above the creepy rhyme had been torn off the page. Nathan thought he could see marks from a pen along the rough, torn edges. It looked like someone had written something on it before tearing it from the page. He read the lullaby once more and shuddered. He couldn't imagine anyone reading or singing something like that to a child. He muttered something to himself about times being different back then as he put the box and the book back where he found them. There was one more box on the shelf. It looked more worn than the others, like it had been opened and shut frequently over the years. Nathan brought it down to the floor and found it was full of photo albums. The first album contained photos of his grandma holding a baby. He thought it must be his father, an only child. He flipped through the photos quickly and moved on to the next album. It had more pictures of his father's early years. His first bath, first steps, and first birthday all were documented by the little faded Polaroids. It was the next album that had Nathan confused. He opened it to find more pictures of his grandma holding a newborn, but he recognized the scene. The background looked just like the baby photos he had seen of his dad before. Only he had never seen any with the other little boy smiling up at the camera too. The boy was in every picture in this album. He was holding his dad, playing with him, bathing him, but Nathan's dad never mentioned any siblings. Pulling out one last album, Nathan found more pictures of the mystery boy. Thankfully, this album was labeled. Each picture was dated, and some had brief captions written below them. Henry, age 3. Henry with Sam. Henry playing t-ball. Henry learns to skate. So Henry was the name of the mystery boy. Nathan made a note to ask his dad about him as he closed the album and returned the shelf to the way he found it. He went upstairs to see if his parents would be ready to go soon. He thought he exhausted his interest in exploring Grandma's house. When he got upstairs, he couldn't find his parents or Grandma. he followed the hallway, peeking into their rooms as he passed by, but didn't see or hear anyone. He reached the last room, his grandmother's bedroom, and gave the door a light push. There was no one in the room, but Nathan's curiosity took hold of him again. He had never been in that room for very long before. The room had very little furniture. Besides the bed, there was a single dresser with a large mirror above it. It was when he saw the mirror that Nathan noticed something familiar. Tucked between the glass and frame was a small shred of paper, a corner, and Nathan recognized the border from the Lullaby book in the basement. One word was written on the scrap: remember. Nathan heard a sound come from the other side of the bedroom window. He peered through the curtain and found his parents doing yard work while his grandma rested in a lawn chair. He joined them, and once the work was done, they went home. After all the work and catching up with his friends after he got home, Nathan had completely forgotten to ask his dad about Henry. He went to sleep that night without a thought of the mysterious young boy in the photos. Sometime around 2 a.m., a sound startled Nathan awake. He sat up to listen. The sound was coming from outside his bedroom door. It was a light rumble, which was followed by a clack, and repeated. The sound went back and forth past the bedroom. Suddenly, Nathan placed the sound. It was roller skates. Just as he realized what he was hearing, the roller skates stopped right in front of Nathan's door. He heard something touch the doorknob on the other side. His door didn't have a lock, so all he could do was get out of bed and brace for whatever was about to come into his room. The knob turned slowly, and the door cracked open. Without much light, Nathan could only barely make out the figure of a small child standing in his doorway. Its head was misshapen, and there was something horribly wrong with the way it stood. The rollerblades on its feet rumbled as the child slowly rolled into the room. Nathan found himself backed up against his window. He threw the curtain open, hoping some light might enter the room so he could see the intruder. Moonlight shone through the window and cast the child in a pale blue light. Nathan tried not to scream as he looked at Henry, the child from the photo album. The helmet he had seen on one of the shelves sat crooked on Henry's head. The damage he'd noticed, a large crack, was split open and covered in oozing blood. The blood ran down Henry's face, soaking his shirt. In the light, Nathan could see why the boy had been standing so strangely. One of his legs was bent inward, opposite the way it should bend. One of his shoulders was crushed and limp too. The boy smiled at Nathan, revealing a mouth full of blood and broken teeth. He didn't speak, but his voice echoed through Nathan's head. Forgotten souls will leave their bones and come to live with you at home.